Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for attending the KALA Times ASAP talk series. My name is Nour Aslam. I'm the founder and executive director of Art South Asia Project. Just to tell you a little bit more about Art South Asia Project, it's a platform to help connect all 5 countries in South Asia further with each other. So we do different programming, we give different grants, and we do talk series like this, which we're very, very proud of, and we're very proud to be partners for KALA for the 2nd edition as well. I want to take this time to officially thank all the partners for KALA, which includes Cinnamon Life City of Dreams, Hatton National Bank PLC, Vijay Newspapers, Rukmini Tasanyam Trust, and then the Fernando Foundation. I also want to thank the Faizal and Shabana Foundation for funding this entire talk series as well. I'm going to start off by giving a small introduction to these lovely panelists over here. So we have Anahita Taneja, and she is the co-founder and chairperson of Permea Art Foundation and the director of Shrine Empire Gallery. She has been working in the South Asian art field for the past 2 decades and working primarily with contemporary artists in India. And I also would like to say that she has recently been awarded the prestigious Officier des Arts de l'État by the French Ministry for her contribution.
It's a tongue twister.
It's a tongue, and as you can tell, I'm so good with pronunciations. For her contributions towards the arts and culture. And next to her is Charles Moore, who we like to call Charlie Moore, who is the co-owner of Grosvenor Gallery. And he started his career at Bonham's Auction House, where we first met, actually. And I would like to say that the reason for me is Charlie, because he trained me when I was at Bonham's Auction House. So if you have any complaints, go straight to him. So this talk today is going to be about how commercial galleries work with artists, what their role is in regards to mentorships, in regards to how they help them, and how the artists help them as well. And I would like for Anahita to start off.
Sure. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Noor, for your very kind words. And it's amazing to speak here today with Charlie. And thank you, KALA, thank you, Saskia and ASAP for bringing us here today. And this is truly special. You know, many people ask me, why Shrine Empire? You know, what does the name mean? So Shrine Empire actually is an amalgamation of 2 entities. Shrine, which was run by my business partner Shafali, and Empire Art, which I ran between 2006 and 2008. And we then later, we met and we realized that, you know, there was a synergy, there was, you know, we had a similar vision, and we decided to collaborate together and form Shrine Empire back in 2008. And since 15 years, our focus at the gallery is on artists from South Asia who work with different media and material to create their work and speak about issues of the contemporary. Looking at research-driven practices, originality, and creating a diversity within the roster are some ways we select our artists. Shrine Empire's community includes a large network of local and international partners, and in collaboration, the gallery contributes to building discourse on contemporary art in South Asia through discussions, artist talks, screenings, workshops, and patronage. So, are you? All right, great. So Permea was really a labor of love, you know, started in 2017 by Shafali and me, and we were in conversation with Anushka Rajendran, who is the head curator of the foundation. She was the winner of Art Scribes Award, and you know, again, she was in conversation with us when we spoke about, you know, the gaps that were there in the art ecosystem in India and South Asia. There were very, very few institutions who were there to kind of support the arts and sort of support alternative practices. And that's where Permea was born. I feel, you know, truly as gallerists, I think we do understand those gaps and can significantly sort of make that difference. Permea means knowledge in Sanskrit, and it was formed in 2017, where we want to build a strong base for the arts locally through sustained educational initiatives and by supporting alternative practices. We give a certain percentage of our profits from our gallery to fund the initiatives of the foundation. We are a nomadic institution which maintains its focus locally and to the extended South Asia region. We've also created several partnerships and collaboration in India and internationally to bring forward varied platforms for our artists, curators, and writers. So far, this has manifested in ethically considered support structures for artists and cultural workers through residencies, production grants for experimental forms of art making, exhibitions, workshops, symposia, screenings, and conversations at the space. Pramay Art Foundation is also the member of World Art Foundation's World Art Foundation, which is a close group of about 200 odd members, from different spaces across the world. So these are some of the initiatives that we launched through the foundation. And when we started, when Shafali and me started, we had these conversations about what do we really want to do with the foundation. Why is the foundation important, within South Asia, and what do we really want to sort of promote? And I think we made a very conscious decision that we wanted to have initiatives which weren't there before. There was no need to kind of replicate what is already happening. The idea was to introduce things which would make a significant impact. So we started, actually, if you could kind of go back on, yeah. So we started with our programming called Craft Participatory, which was one of the first programs that we introduced through Pramay Art Foundation. And we invited Sue Williamson, who is one of the legendary South African artists, into India. And she worked with students from different colleges in Delhi who we got together for that program. And right from the process of, that ideating, to finally the end result, which was this photograph, which you see, Delhi, we know you, but we don't know you. This particular tagline, which came in collaboration as a conversation between the artists and the students. And I think that was phenomenal. The idea that they were able to work with somebody like Sue Williamson and to really work with her, to understand from her, and that learning, I think, would go a long way. So this was the first programming and the exhibition that started the space. And then we introduced Discover. Sorry, we'll have to still stay at that first slide. Thank you so much. So we introduced Discover, which was during COVID. And this particular series sort of supported young artists in India who did not have gallery support. And that was so important during that time because, there was a sudden, we all didn't know what was going to happen at that point of time, and the idea to support the artists then was very important for us. So we did these sort of virtually curated solo exhibitions, and what was wonderful, that was even after that, those artists got sort of represented by different galleries in India. So I think it was successful in its own way. Now we've sort of gone forward and collaborated with the India Art Fair, and we recently showed Devdeep Gupta as part of the solo exhibition at the Art Fair, which got a great response. Then there was Art Scribes Award, which was actually one of our most initial initiatives that we introduced through Pramaya. And this supports a curator who we sent for a residency in L'Anapole Foundation in south of France. And then we also help in sort of helping them curate an exhibition in the space. We can move to the next slide. Then we have Craft Publish, which is our artist book grant that we give. And the first edition was won by Sahil Nayak. And honestly, this initiative was introduced because, again, there isn't really a grant that supports artist book publications, and we didn't want to keep it a limited edition. We wanted to sort of have a mass production for the book so that it reaches many more hands and doesn't stay only within the art community itself. Then there is the Han Nefkin Foundation South Asian Video Production Grant, which is a grant that we give for moving image work in South Asia. And the winner of that for the first edition was Shahana Rajni, and which is great. We're so proud about it, and we're going to be showing her work at the space in around the summers this year. Then we have PAIR, which is a mid-career artist grant, and this is called Craft Artists in Residence. And here we send the artists to Cité International des Arts in Paris for a 3-month residency program. Again, this award was sort of, it came about because we realized that mid-career artists, there is no award or initiative for them, which supports, projects that come about at that juncture in an artist's career. And, a lot of mid-career artists slip through the cracks. We all know about that. And how do we kind of, as a foundation, be able to sort of, give that support or, that, platform. So that's how like PAIR was sort of, initiated. And it's been a great collaboration, and City International is a superb space. I mean, they have amazing curators visiting right from Centre Pompidou to, various other institutions, just interacting with them. So the kind of, exposure that happens through that, and there is nothing that culminates out of it, it's sometimes, you kind of leave it, within, after the award. Now, everything doesn't have to have an end result. So that's what we do with PAIR. We just send them for a 3-month residency, and then they're able to kind of, go forward with those initiatives. Then, of course, workshop, conversations, and screenings come along with it. I think the idea of that is always to create a community around PRAF, to be able to just have that audience always visiting, interacting, and, we always want to keep increasing that community. So yes, that's from my Art Foundation, and now we go into our conversation of today, which is how galleries build artistic careers. Can we go to the next slide? So there are some points that are put down, which is, important to think and ponder over, which is that, when we sign up an artist or represent an artist at the gallery, for us, they become part of the Shrine Empire family. We would like to do everything, right, from A to Z, to sort of make sure that we can, sort of help them, in whatever way in their career possible. So of course, there is, we introduce them to curators in India and internationally. We make sure that we can kind of, have those conversations with them so that curators are aware of their practices, more deeply, introduce them to the artists so that they can have their own conversations. And then it's great because, a lot of these curators then, curate exhibitions, biennales, triennales, and they're able to include our artists as a part of it. Then we commission text from writers, which again, I feel those conversations with writers for them to know about the practices is also very integral, part of the whole sort of, thing that we do. Because, to contextualize their practices, again, is, an important thing. Inviting curators to curate solo exhibitions, the conversations that they have with the artists, right from the production stage of it. And I think I think artists enjoy that process also, that constant, conversation, feedback from the curators, and then ultimately, of course, the final exhibition. Residency opportunities, where we feel that, there are these stages, there are points, and I mean, I'm sure, Charlie would agree with it as well, that, that there are certain points of stagnation, or there are certain points of, where artists feel that maybe, or we feel that maybe a certain inclusion of, a residency might be important, because they're great spaces for them to meet people from different disciplines, to, have those interactions with them, to be able to just think a little beyond what they're doing. And I think a different space altogether helps them to create that conversation and dialogue. Then we of course help them with submissions of applications. A lot of artists don't need it also, but some do need it. And then we help them in that process. How do you make a portfolio, and how do you kind of put it together? What is it that you want to say? How can you keep that concept, sort of concise? So put that point across in, a simple manner. These things help in, sort of, whether it's, submissions for residencies, whether it's submissions for awards, we help them in that process. And of course, market pricing, that's, of course, integral to, the gallery, what the gallery does. Because, but it's different. It's different for younger artists, it's different for mid-career, different for, senior artists. You have to be sensible about pricing, where we're very, very careful when we introduce a younger artist, that we price them sensibly. Collectors should find it easy to buy a work. There shouldn't be too much thought. And I think if you're able to do that with some of, some really good artists, I think, half the battle is won there. They already have their works, in their collection. They're able to kind of talk about it to various other people. And then the word spreads, where word spreads around. Then we have, building a strong collector base, getting back to that, where I think developing relationships with collectors, understanding, what do they collect? It's not about, just trying to sell a work, we can't, yes, of course you're selling a work, but how do you treat it? You're not treating it like a commodity. You know, you're treating it like to build on that relationship, understand their collections, suggest them works according to their collections, right? And I think those things collectors really appreciate, you know. And then of course museum acquisitions, you know, this is something that grows on. Of course, you know, you don't expect the first thing that you introduce a young artist, the artist will get into a museum. That doesn't really happen. It's over the course of time that, you know, you spend, you know, and then you build those relationships, and then, you know, you make sure that they enter important museum collections, because then of course the work gets seen, you know, to a much larger audience. A lot of people are aware of what the artist does, what their practice is. And then of course production support. You know, a lot of artists need that. I think all of them need that, you know, and it's important as a gallery to be able to extend that hand of support when it's needed. I don't think artists will be able to create a lot of these ambitious projects if they don't have that support, you know, from the gallery. So we do try and extend that hand.
I'm just gonna, sorry, this was amazing. I'm just worried about time because we also have to go.
Yeah, I think I'm done, almost. So I think the CD, you know what we do.
No, but I've also got a lot of questions for both of you. So
sure.
Yeah. All right, so thank you so much for explaining the way Shrine Empire works, and of course the non-for-profit that you started as well. And I'm going to talk about Grosvenor Gallery, because I know the system there is very different from what happens at Shrine Empire. So.
That's right, it is.
You got to turn here, just take that.
That's right, yeah. Also, a very quick thank you to KALÀ and to Saskia and to Nour and to Mala and the whole team for having us here and organising such a fantastic second edition. I caught the very end of last year's one, and I was very glad I did, and was quite desperate to come back this year, so I'm glad I managed to go on board. Our gallery in London is now, as of this year, 65 years old. It was established in 1960 by an American businessman called Eric Esterick, who was a great collector of Italian modernist work and a great supporter of sort of non-traditional is probably not the right word, but the gallery exhibited Soviet artists from the Soviet Union in the 60s, exhibited black South African artists who had to leave the country because of apartheid. But one of the most relevant associations for this region is the gallery's representation of Francis Newton Sousa in the mid-1960s. And as time developed and time went on, the gallery found itself with stock of Sousa's paintings in the early 2000s. And that, around that time is when the Indian modern and contemporary market was really changing, and there was a renewed appreciation of work by artists from the modernist period in India. And so over the last 25 years, the gallery's lent more and more towards South Asia and the region. And my background and how I know Nour is because we worked together at Bonhams in the South Asian and Middle Eastern art department, and how I know Megan as well. And we are now really one of the only places you can see this type of material in the UK. I'm going to say it, Europe as well, because you know there really aren't many galleries. You know, of course, there are contemporary artists working with a range of galleries all across the UK. But I think the interesting aspect for us is that we show the modernist work as well. So we're able to contextualise what some of the artists are producing now. I run the gallery and own the gallery with my colleague Conor Macklin, who a lot of you will know. And we do have a contemporary programme. It is sort of on the back of the modernist programme that we have, and dealing in secondary market works, i.e. things that have been previously sold already, that enables us to have a contemporary programme, really. You know, we work with mid-career and senior contemporary artists, but then we do have these other projects as well, which are, and Saskia really hit on it earlier on when she said the future is all about collaboration, because the contemporary shows that we do and we hold are in collaboration with galleries from the region. So for many years we had a tie-up with Videra Gallery in Delhi, and we would show their artists in the UK, and we would in turn send European works out to India. that was a bit ahead of its time, because to be quite honest, there was a bit of a, wasn't always that successful, but there you go. We have a fantastic tie-up with Canvas Gallery in Karachi, and Samira is in the audience somewhere, and that's extremely enjoyable, and we've put shows together and brought them over to the UK, group shows and then solo shows, and that's been a very enjoyable experience. And as of later on this year, we have a fantastic new tie-up with a gallery that's very close to everyone's hearts here. We're very lucky to be working with PRSFG and presenting a two-person show of Jagannath Weerasinghe and Chandragupta Tenwara in October in London this year. So the reason the collaborations are beneficial is that you have a lot more people working with the same goal in mind, and there is already traction in the market for the artist. There are collectors out there already who have an interest in seeing the artist's career advance and change context as well. It is fantastic that this platform exists, and it's wonderful that people are coming, are encouraged to come here. But I think it's also important for artists to show in a different context and in different cities. And like you say, it often shakes things up and changes the dynamic a bit.
So you went from primarily working with modern artists, and now you work with quite a lot of contemporary artists as well. Can you explain that shift a little bit more?
You're right. Our sort of day-to-day is mainly modernism. And I came here last year, and we had an exhibition of Ivan Period's paintings on at the gallery in London. So there's a bit of an excuse to come, to be quite honest, and a very nice one. But that was wonderful because that opened quite a few doors, and with our secondary market dealing, what we try and do is add information to the pile, to the roster by finding these collections of works, by adding information through archival research, through archiving artists' collections, and off the back of that, we have an interesting array of people that end up coming into the gallery, and that allows us, excuse me. That allows us to have quite an exciting contemporary program. We do work with mainly mid-career and senior artists like Seneca Senayake, and we run projects in the region and overseas. We just had a big exhibition of his paintings in Mumbai, which was a great show to do, really enjoyable and successful as well, because ultimately we are a commercial entity. We're fortunate to be working in this field, which is changing so dramatically and quickly, and has done over the last, how long have we been doing it? Nearly 20 years. But if you go back to the late 1990s, you hear all these stories about these British dealers going down Portobello Road Market, buying Sousas for £150, and it happened, and things have changed so quickly in such a short space of time.
And those stories are very annoying, by the way.
No, but I wish I was walking in one of those markets.
I know, where were we?
Exactly.
High school.
Okay, so I have a question for both of you now, which is, how do you discover new artists for your gallery roster? Like, how do you connect with them? How do you find them?
Should I?
Go on, you go first, yeah.
So, with Shrine Empire, we look at a lot of research-driven practices and also the originality of it. And the fact that, certain artists sort of push boundaries with certain mediums. So we have Sangeeta Maiti in our roster, and she's primarily a printmaker. But she uses her, printmaking with different techniques. Like she has copper etching, she uses metal sheets, she puts serigraphy on it. It's very interesting to see that happening, right? How do you keep sort of exploring, experimenting, and So I think we enjoy that process. So we kind of select in that manner.
And how did you discover her? Where did you find out about her?
So I was in Calcutta, that's my hometown, and I just walked into Seema Gallery one day because that's what we do, right? We go to every gallery and museum wherever we are. And walked into the space and I saw Sangeeta's work and loved it. And met her, and then rest is history.
There you go.
When it comes to contemporary artists, we rely on those collaborations and the opinions of the galleries we deal with, because ultimately they know the artists they work with better than we do, and they know the market, and they're aware of the strength of and depth of the collectors and their support for those particular artists. So it's a conversation, of course, but we can't go somewhere and say, well, we want to show this artist. And like I said, that collaborative nature is just better for everyone. When it comes to the more senior artists, that is a sort of research-based approach, I guess. In the last few years, we've started working with two very senior artists, one from Iraq, sadly passed away about 3 weeks ago, and then an artist from Chandigarh, a sculptor, who's in his 80s. And often, as is the case, as Anahita mentioned, people sort of fall off the radar sometimes, and they don't receive the attention that the quality of work deserves. And in the case of this particular sculptor, who's a man called Avtachit Tanjong, he was part of a very important exhibition in the 1980s in London called The Other Story, which is sort of critical for a whole group of very important artists who were contributing to British artistic society in the late 20th century, but who weren't receiving any institutional attention. And this exhibition is a real landmark. Ivan Peries was in that show as well. It contained artists such as Sousa, Lubai Nahimi, David Madala, Eddie Chambers. The list goes on, and these are now household names.
Yeah.
Mona Hatoum as well.
Mona Hatoum, yeah. And Rashid Areen. It's an amazing list. So this we started working with him. He left London, and a bit of ill health meant that he kind of faded away from the limelight a little bit. But what we're working to do now is to sort of recontextualise his work, present it in a manner where people can interact with it again. It's very large sculptural work, so it's actually quite logistically difficult to do. So it's we'll deal with that.
And storing, it's not easy.
So it's with contemporary, it's through our collaborations. With the modernist work, it's through research and trying to dig these things out.
Thank you. And when it comes to supporting your artists, I mean, obviously you do it in a commercial manner by selling their work, but like you were saying so well, like you help with different, writing processes and all of that. So how much more do you help them with different things that you're doing at the gallery? So when it comes to museum acquisitions or other kinds of support other than commercial skills?
For sure. We help in a range of ways. We kind of help, in any way we can. We're not a large team in London, but we provide, logistical support in terms of very boring and basic things like shipping, which is very important, sadly. And expertise in terms of presentation. This is for, say, the younger artists. Presentation, how to have things framed. And these sound like basic things, but attention to detail and the way that you present something as, I'm sitting here and there are fantastic colleagues in the room who have far more experience of this than I do, so, but I think it's important to, state out the basics as well. It's important to present, a considered exhibition. We produce catalogues, we commission essays, we then provide copies of those catalogues to the various art libraries around the world. We make everything available online as well. You can go on our website and look at catalogues from the 60s, because what's the point in having them sitting on our bookshelf?
Yeah.
That information should be accessible and should be out there. So we help in that way in terms of sort of building a legacy, and museum acquisitions, where we're able to help. Of course, that's a long, slow process, but it's important. But again, it's often a long road to get to that place, and it's staging exhibitions at the gallery in London, but also it's important for artists to have visibility on the international stage. So we go and exhibit at art fairs, and again, if you just turn up, I find if you just turn up and put things up on the wall, sometimes you don't get quite the reception you want to. So we tend to have curatorial elements. It's probably not quite right, but for this exhibition, for example, this was an art fair called Frieze Masters in London in October, and the works on the left are by a Nepalese painter called Lane Singh Bandar, who's incredibly important for the Nepalese modernism, but and exhibited with a lot of Indian, Pakistani, Sri Lankan artists in Paris in the 1950s, but has kind of, again, fallen off the radar and isn't spoken about in a way that he perhaps should be in the context of South Asian modernism in the 20th century. So what we did was, working with another gallery who represent the estate of the artist, we brought works by the artist that he was showing with in Paris in the 50s. And so by putting his work within the context of artists like Raza and Souza Hussain and Sadaken and Ivan Pires, suddenly Zubaida Aga, suddenly people come and it's a much easier concept to grasp. They're all at the same table in that sense. Right. So that's part of what we do to help some of the more senior artists.
Thank you. And I mean, obviously the landscape for commercial galleries in London is very different from what is happening in India. So can you explain a little bit further as well as to how you help your artists with all the different platforms that you have and how you assist them with other things?
So, as I mentioned, I mean, for all artists, I mean, the support is in various ways, whether it's logistics, whether it's production, and, and also sort of showing them in art fairs, right? We've been part of a few international art fairs, and it's really important to kind of take it across to different audiences in different parts of the world so that people get to know about their practices and get to be seen there. And of course, I mean, people buy the work, it supports the artists as well. I mean, and the gallery, let's not forget that. And, I think it's, these conversations, feedbacks, to artists also really important. I feel that, the relationship with them and that constant, conversation and dialogue really helps, in the long run, because whether it's pricing or whether it's what kind of exhibitions or where these exhibitions should happen, I think plays an important role. So we try and do that. I think just keeping that conversation going with the artists is really critical for us.
Can I just add one more thing as well?
No.
I think, again, collaboration is a really key point. There was an artist that we started working with as part of a group show with Canvas several years ago. She then went on to have solo shows at the gallery in London. We showed their work overseas at fairs, and then what we've done is, the tendency with a successful contemporary artist is to sort of hoard them, and to because we are a commercial space, but the reality is that's not really good for everyone. Yeah. So in that instance, what we did is introduce them onto another gallery who can show the artist's work on a much broader stage and in a different context, and they're kind of going from strength to strength. But what's key is that they wouldn't be where they are now had it not been for the support of the gallery in the first instance and the continuing support of their dealer. Yeah. But it is that collaborative element that I think is really important, and also it helps us because we don't have to carry the full burden of having to show at God knows how many art fairs around the world throughout the year, which takes its toll, on us as we are quite a small team. So sharing the love is a very helpful thing in many respects.
I completely agree with that on both sides. So I have just two more small little questions because I feel like there might be a few artists in the audience, and that how would you suggest an artist approaches you if they want to showcase their work, or how would you take that into consideration? What is the advice that you would give?
So, I think what's really important also is that, to understand the aesthetic of that particular gallery before also approaching the gallery, to understand that your works would fit into, I mean, one knows what Shrine Empire does, right? But to come to us maybe with the practice that you feel the gallery would like to support. And we see, I mean, I don't know if everybody does, but we actually see every email that is sent to us. So when artists send works, they may think that the gallerists are not seeing it and kind of goes, you know, unnoticed, but that's not true. We actually see, me and Shafali actually check every email. We go through the portfolios, but we may not get back to the artist because maybe we feel that maybe it doesn't kind of sink in with our programming, or, but a lot of times we have gotten back. So, I mean, just send the portfolio, you know, and that helps. And the other thing also, which is, you know, which is interesting, is that a lot of curators approach us, you know, with artists that they may want the gallery to show. I think it's good to kind of reach out to curators. Reach out to them, show them your work, talk to them about your work, and, you know, be rest assured if the curator likes it, it's going to go to one of the galleries. Yeah, so I think that's what I would say.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And it's a very social industry. And I would just add to that, to, you know, visit as many places as you can.
Yeah.
And, you know, coming to events like this is also key because you get access to people who are very willing to share their knowledge, as limited as it may be in some respects, but people are very happy to help and give advice. You know, the reality is that you do get a lot of submissions, and it's really tough because sometimes sometimes you see price and you try and give advice, but sometimes it's difficult to give sort of beneficial advice. But I would certainly say that you know, be social, put yourself out there, speak to the curators, stay in touch with the universities, you know, go back, teach, do practical projects, you know, put yourself in lots of different parts of this industry because it is broad as well. And actually something that Jaiva touched on yesterday in his talk was, you know, there are these other creative elements in the art world other than producing visual art that have a tight hand on the creative process. Don't discount those as well. You know, we have a great framer in London. He was an Australian guy that came to the UK to be an artist, ended up working in a frame shop, ended up running the frame shop, and now has a hugely successful framing business. You know, it probably wasn't his ideal choice, but actually, you know, his creativity comes out in a different way. So don't discount that as well. Plus, you know, restoration is an amazing aspect and crucial aspect of what everyone does, from galleries to museums, and those sort of practices are developing over time as well. So don't discount, don't rule that out, I'd say.
Amazing, thank you. That actually leads very well into my last question, so thank you. And I thought you were so kind and you explained how you went from Shrine Empire to creating Permea Art Foundation. And Charlie, actually, I know you've done the same thing where you have created a platform that is helping South Asian art in the UK. So could you please delve into that a little bit more?
I can, yeah. So this is a project, I can't take full responsibility for this one. This is myself and my wife, Laura. We launched a project called ATRA South Asia in April last year, and it was partly down to my sort of lack of knowledge of what was going on within the field that I work in. I think often it's hard.
Honest and good.
Well, there you go. Yeah, there's no point messing around. Sometimes it's very hard to access information. You know, you go on a website and this could just be me. It could just be a bit of a dinosaur.
No. ASAP, I do the exact same thing.
Yeah. So it basically got me out of my comfort zone a bit and made me more attentive to what was going on in the UK. And suddenly, when you start looking properly, it's amazing how many projects are happening around the UK with visual arts by diaspora artists, British Asian artists, artists who are visiting from overseas, galleries who are coming from overseas. And what we wanted to do was create a platform where everything was, we try to do is pick up everything that's happening in the UK and list it in a clear, easy to access platform, which is just updated, you know, as often as we find something new. So that is quite an I'm quite excited about it as well, because as time goes on, it is evolving into something else. It's becoming a repository for information created by curators, by people in the industry who are happy to lend, to give what they've done previously. There was a fantastic exhibition of an artist called Barty Kerr at Yorkshire Sculpture Park last year. So what we did was, there's a great writer called KALÀ in London. She kindly reworked an existing text. We added a photo essay, and then we added links to previous shows of hers, to her galleries, to interesting reference points, but which are kind of vetted, So you go on there and you can have a 5-minute read, or you can click on each link and go down a rabbit hole of information about this particular artist. And that's kind of the way this is going, as well as it will become this repository of information that can give you a little or can give you a lot, but is considered, I think, very well designed, clear, easy to use, and accessible, and without that barrier, because often art writing is quite academic and not necessarily always that easy to digest.
It's not really accessible a lot of the time.
And not accessible as well. So that's a big part of it. It's accessibility, because often we travel around the world and we see the same 80 people in a room, all talking about and it's fantastic. But and what KALÀ is doing is very good by documenting things and making sure that the videos and audio is accessible, because that's how you disseminate the information. And so this is part of the project as well. We want, I went to the archive of an Indian painter called Saeed Raza in Delhi last week, and oh my God, the information that's in there is staggering. I mean, the guy was a bit of a hoarder, old dry cleaning tickets, that kind of thing. But filing cabinets full of the most amazing photographs that no one's ever seen. Exhibition catalogues, again, that no one's ever seen. So I think by the little that we're doing, little and often, it grows and is becoming bigger. So the whole point of the project is accessibility and sort of ease of access, and with a collaborative nature as well. And it's something we're very proud of, and feel like it's got a long way to go. So do go on the website, subscribe, we're very excited by it.
No, it's an amazing initiative, and I love the fact that as you were working at the gallery, you understood that there was something that was missing, and you decided to just create it, which is clearly what's happening with KALÀ and so many other initiatives. Can you explain, with Prameya Art Foundation, was it the same kind of thought process?
Yeah, as mentioned, when Shafali and me had a conversation just before, like a year before we started Prameya, we wanted to fill those gaps, the lacunas in the system. I think it was really important that we don't sort of do same things we probably have just about 5, foundations in India which are doing, consistent work, right? So you don't want to do what others are doing. You want to fill in the gaps. And as gallerists, one understands those gaps. One understands what's needed for artists maybe, and maybe what's missing, and maybe those grants would help them, sort of take those practices forward. And that's what we try and, sort of fill in with Prameya.
Amazing. Well,
we're in a very fortunate period of time when you can do an awful lot with a little,
yes,
to create something that does actually make a difference. And there are, in inverted commas, new media like podcasts and things like that. And you go and do interviews with artists, and then suddenly that's down on record. And if only 2 people listen to them, it will lead on to something else. And it's just about. It's about engaging in the community, and the community's there and they want to engage as well, and we have the ability to do it with hard work. It's not an easy thing to do, but when I told a good friend about this project, he said, because it's just UK, and I think the focus is quite key as well. He said, "Oh, is there one for New York?" And I said, "Well, no."
Soon to come.
Exactly, soon to come. And but then you branch out, and there's all sorts of things you can do. But I think having the local knowledge and it being a deep dive into something rather than a general overview is part of the attraction for it, because a few people have said, why is it just this? Why are you just doing that, focusing on that region? But it's the field I've worked in for a long time, touch wood, will carry on working in for a long time. We're very fortunate to do what we do, and I think if we can give back even just a little something, if it's making navigating this information easier, then that's great.
I just feel also that I think just doing anything with the right intent, just takes you a long way.
Just knowing that even if 2 people are listening to this podcast, it's made a difference in the 2 people's lives, and I think
sometimes 10.
Sometimes 8. Yeah. I'm going to open up questions from the audience. Would anyone like to ask anything?
I have a question by Phil Root, because I can ask you anytime.
Hello, Charlie, I have a question for you. I want to ask you that when you work with mid-career artists, how do you work with them to sort of develop their careers that they become auction worthy going forward?
Ooh, that's a smart one, Copy paste.
I'm quite fortunate because I have experience of auction house as well as private dealing, so I can't land firmly on one side or the other. But as was mentioned in the talk earlier, it's that whole ecosystem that relies on each other. It's a double-edged sword. You have to be very careful. Just because something is offered at auction, you run a big risk. Because the market can reject it, and then suddenly all your hard work is kind of gone in a puff of smoke, really, and it's very hard to build back up to that. An artist that we work with, Rashid Ar-Rahim, nothing has ever come up for auction, but he is one of the most significant British artists of the late 20th century, with 1 or 2 charity exceptions. But he's present in major museums around the world. But the reality is as well that we have no control over the auction market, over the secondary market. We sell the work, we do as well as we can for the artist in terms of promotion, in inclusion in international events, biennials, that kind of thing. And you can only do so much. And then if someone's bought something from your gallery 5 years ago and the auction house is willing to take it, then that's it. You're sort of cast it to the winds, and if you've done a good job and the artist is sought after, then the work will find its place in the market. But it's not always the best thing. But yeah.
Sorry, may I?
Yeah.
Sorry, because I'm just also remembering my time at the auction house, and sometimes it can be very damaging for an artist, because you'll see an artist go very high in price, even though they haven't been working in the market for that long, and then suddenly the price will just completely drop. So you just have to be very careful. So I think that's why the primary galleries like Shrine Empire and Grosvenor, those are the best places to then build up your career at the end of the day. Yep.
Well, isn't it serendipitous that I've got the microphone?
Go on, Christie's. Yeah.
Auction houses are wonderful places.
Yeah, no, they are. Yeah.
But I do hear what you're saying, and I think that we can talk more about that later. I have a question for our fabulous panelists. I'd like to know, because this is something that I've observed and felt myself, do you feel as gallery owners that you have a lot of pressure in the market now to move towards new technologies? I'd say yes for you, Charlie, maybe with the work that you and Laura are doing. But do you feel a pressure from artists as well as maybe your peers to evolve, to change, to move away from a traditional gallery model and sort of look at different opportunities, whether that's of course collaborations and sort of app-based work, but with fairs or anything really, because I find that's something that I think about a lot.
Sure, go, you go first.
You know, Megan, I truly feel that we shouldn't, we try not to follow trends. Like if we realize that there are trends, we try not to follow it. We go with what our gut says, you know, and we go with what we feel will truly make a difference, say, to the artist or to the career, rather than going by trends, because, you know, that's always short-lived. You know, and we always look at the long term when we, you know, sort of represent an artist.
I mean, I would say that there's the way a lot of galleries present off the back of COVID, you know,
Yeah.
that has made a big difference and a big change, and even the way the auction houses have been operating in a very different way to, say, 10 years ago. Also, you know, the industry does need to evolve, and it does need to change and embrace these new technologies, which, you know, let's face it, some of the galleries, you know, some galleries are very, you know, sort of stuck in a previous age, you know, and we were as well to some extent, you know. So I think it's really important to embrace these what's there and what's out there, because, you know, if you don't change now, the rate of acceleration of what's out there is just, it's going to take off. So you need to be mindful of, you're just going to get left behind, I think. I do also feel that the structure of art fairs is great, it's very good, but actually sometimes it can be quite soul-destroying.
Yeah.
Quite, you know, hard work, and doesn't
I so
necessarily bring what you want from it. So, you know, do we just carry on banging our head against the brick wall and carry on doing this? Yes, there are huge benefits to it, but perhaps there's change in that sphere as well. And I think that focusing on a region and, you know, KALÀ bringing the artists to Sri Lanka rather than bringing the artworks is extremely clever, and has worked really well. It fosters those relationships. So I don't know if I've quite answered your question, but the short answer is yes, we have to. Yeah.
I know there's one more question. There you go.
Well, back to collecting. How do commercial galleries, in some ways, how do you navigate supporting collectors? Because we collect works, and sometimes we want to move on from those works. And the option is either you go into auction houses, and then it's not sometimes great for the artist's career to be that early in an auction or to be put in a no-reserve auction. The alternative is that we have to come back to you and be like, can you go on and place them somewhere? When do you say yes? When do you say no? Do you take a call to support a work at auction? Do you take a call not to support a work at auction? How do you navigate those challenges? I mean, this is for both of you.
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. Certainly with the modernist works, we stand by, you know, what we sell. So if someone comes back to us in a couple of years' time and says, you know, for whatever reason I'd like to sell, through out of necessity or desire, we will always help them, you know. So, you know, with the modernist works, we're always happy to try and place those and sell those. But then obviously our main competition for the established names is the auction houses. But again, that can yield fantastic results. When it comes to the younger artists, we do kind of bear a responsibility to stand by them and to support the artists, you know, if the work does appear at auction and it makes sort of financial sense for us too. It's obviously not an endless pot that we're working with, but, you know, it's in everyone's interests to make sure that an artist is supported, and if the opportunity to do so arises and is financially viable, then yes, that's absolutely something we do.
So, you know, for contemporary artists that, you know, we represent through the gallery, for us it's really important that those works don't reach the auctions. You know, the younger mid-career artists, we feel that we need to establish them a lot more. Because, I mean, auctions can, I mean, we can have, the work selling at a lesser price, which is detrimental to the artist's career and to the gallery as well, because it's a lot that goes into supporting and representing the artist. Also, what time, you know, of their career they're getting auctioned. I think that's also really important. So, as a gallery, we have bought back, taken back works. You know, we have kept it for a while also, so that when we feel is the right collector or a right collection to sort of give that work to, we've done that as well. So yeah, we do work with the collectors to make sure that they're always coming back to the gallery. They're always supportive of the gallery. It's always a give and take. It can never be one way.
Amazing.
Good answer.
Very good answer.
Can I just add one very specific thing? Because if there are artists here, and this is a bit boring, so sorry about this, but
keep going.
Under the sort of advice for artists,
yeah.
I would say, and I'm guilty of this sometimes as well, that getting everything in writing and getting an agreement in writing with a gallery is absolutely crucial to everyone's sanity and well-being throughout the life cycle of a relationship. And it sounds stupid, but it's considering who pays for shipping, who pays for framing, what happens after the exhibition, how long the gallery has the work, who pays for it to come back. All these things are, an exhibition is so exciting, and we as gallery owners, we're very fortunate to be able to offer artists the ability to do that, but and so sometimes you get a bit carried away with yourself. But these details are the really important ones to sort of nail down so that everyone can enjoy the experience.
That is not boring at all. That's actually really crucial. And I would say with any kind of collaboration, that should be the case. Everything should be written down, everything should be clear, and also it's really good to ask questions. Yeah. There's no really such thing as a stupid question. Yeah. So really, just as many questions as possible is good too. Yeah. Any other questions? Hey! There you go.
There's a lady at the back as well.
Oh yeah. Sorry. There's one more in the back.
Thank you. On the, hope this isn't a simple question.
Artists, I think it's a beautiful relationship that collectors develop with artists. And I feel the more they interact with them, they're also able to kind of understand the practice further and be more interested. So we do connect a lot of our collectors sometimes to artists, just introduce them, let them take those conversations forward. I think it's important to be a secure gallery, and let that, sort of organically flow. So we do a lot of that, and of course, I think just to be in touch with them, to constantly sort of take them through different artists' careers and like practices, I think is something that's just part of our conversations, yeah.
And I think something I'm very passionate about is making sure that things that we deal with are fully researched, and it really drives me mad when we miss out something after the event. But what we try and do is present as much information for a buyer as they could possibly want, that not only benefits them and us, but also the record going forward. It's a shame when you see paintings come up and it's just as private collection.
Yeah.
There's much more there to sort of delve into. So what I spend a lot of time researching and looking into the history of some of this material. And we also help other institutions arrange exhibitions of contemporary artists' work. There's one that's just closed in Cambridge in the UK of Rashidari at Downing College. It's putting the artist's work in a completely different context and allowing people who buy not from our own circle to see that material who otherwise may not have done. So it's a sort of, there's quite a few different aspects to it, I guess. And working on, contributing to projects like Catalogue Resonés and, people sometimes are quite, closed with the information they're willing to share, but I think the more you put out there, the more you get back.
And I know there's one last question in the back.
Right over here. Thank you both. My question relates to threshold fear. So galleries are inherently intimidating spaces, even for some of us who frequent these spaces. So I'm just curious to know how you try to counter that and get people through the door who might then walk away wanting to become a collector.
I love that question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because that's exactly what we do at the gallery. Just a friendly face is great, Like, come on. Speak to the people, speak to the artists, speak to the collectors. I don't know why galleries become these intimidating spaces. to kind of get rid of that. Yeah, to get rid of that, we've actually formed a reading salon at the gallery where we have a coffee machine. People come in, take a cup of coffee, sit and read a book. Galleries enter, you have great conversations, and it's no more an intimidating space. I think I experienced that, much earlier in my career, while visiting London, not Grosvenor. While visiting London, I did go to a lot of galleries, and there was nobody coming forward, to talk to you, to talk about the artist, nothing. So, you enter the space, you feel that, oh my God, I don't know anything about this artist, so you enter and then you leave. So, that's one thing we wanted to erase when we started the gallery, that, we tell our staff, just be really friendly, have conversations, and people come back again and again because of that.
Very good point, yeah. It is a great question. And let's be honest, some galleries do operate in a manner where barriers to sale are inherently built into the model. So they're meant to be. Some of these places are meant to be.
Like luxury stores like Hermes.
Exactly, yeah. And I experienced that as well. And I know I feel your pain because it's not very nice. But I think the way galleries can interact with the public can be sort of seen through social media, through the material that they put out there, and also, if in doubt, just ring them up and just say, do you have any shows coming up? Do you have any talks or anything like that? Try and have a personal connection, because otherwise, if you're just met with a website and a closed door on a fancy street, it can be quite intimidating. But I think the vast majority of galleries want people to come in, because also, it makes the place alive. When we do modernist shows, can get a bit dusty after a few days. After the first flush of interest, how many people are necessarily coming in, it slows down. But with contemporary art, you really want people in. You want, people from all aspects of society to come and see the work, and that's certainly what the artists want. So our job, as Anahita has said, is to be as welcoming as we possibly can be, and I think for the vast majority, you just have to push through it, because once you get in the door, there are lots of friendly faces who are willing to show what they know.
And what we recently introduced at the gallery is sort of becoming bilingual. It's really important to kind of extend yourself to a diverse audience. And so I think that's also made a great change.
Yeah.
And people have appreciated it. We have people conversing in Hindi, so much more in India.
Yeah.
And why not have that at the gallery available for people to read?
100% agree. I want to take this time to thank everyone for attending this talk. And also the speakers. I'm loud enough, it's fine, yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, and thank you for attending Beyond the Walls, How Galleries Develop Artistic Careers. And we look forward to seeing you for the next talk at 2:30. And, sorry, one last thing. Thank you so much to the Faizal and Shabana Foundation and QissaGoi and the entire KALA team for everything that they've done. Thank you.